Good afternoon. My name is Tracy Nyer, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC. I'll be your facilitator for today's webinar. For those of you who are not familiar, the Virginia SBDC is the largest and most effective provider of customized counseling and education for small businesses in Virginia. Most of our services are offered locally in 28 locations throughout the Commonwealth. Today's webinar is one of our educational offerings and is part of our ongoing webinar series, Google and Beyond, Marketing and Managing on the Web. Today's topic is e-commerce basics for retail small businesses, point of sales, e-commerce, mCommerce solutions. All of our Google and Beyond webinars are presented by Ray Sidney Smith, a web and mobile strategist, author of Solo Success, Social Media Local and Web Small Business Marketing Strategy Explained, and president of W3 Consulting. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type those questions into the question window and Ray will do his best to answer them. Without further ado, here's Ray Sidney Smith.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you to the Virginia SBDC Network for hosting these Beyond Google Marketing and Managing on the Web webinar series. As Tracy said, now is really the time to ask questions in the question panel, so feel free to go ahead and do that. Tracy will interject and ask me questions that are pertinent for the flow of the webinar. Those that can be held to the end will be, and I'll be happy to stay as long as we need to answer those questions. If you have a question after the webinar, a brilliant insight comes to you and that comes with a query, feel free to go ahead and tweet at me at W3 Consulting, hashtag it Beyond Google. I'll be happy to answer that. If you're not a Twitter person, if you're not a Twitter fan like myself, then I will have my email address on the final slide and you can feel free to email me and I will respond to you via email so that I can answer your questions that way. Also, feel free to follow at Virginia SBDC to stay abreast of future programs like this, as well as other information that they provide via their social media channels. So go ahead and follow at Virginia SBDC. So that takes us to today's agenda. And today's agenda, what I'd like to do is to just very briefly go over point of sale and e-commerce, what they are. And then what I will do is I'll probably get up on my soapbox about e-commerce for retailers, so you'll understand what I mean by that. And then we will talk about best practices for selecting both point of sale as well as e-commerce. I'm sort of putting an umbrella term over e-commerce and point of sale here in that sense, but I want to go through some of those really important items that you need to pay attention to when it comes to point of sale as well as e-commerce. We'll go over those, and then I have a whole bunch of tools that I'd like to show you, giving you sort of a good range of options for being able to select your both point of sale solution as well as e-commerce solutions down the road. Finally, we'll close out with some question and answer. Really, I'll only leave about a minute or so for that, but like I said, after we close out, I'll be happy to stay after for question and answer for as long as we need to. With that, let's kick into it. Point of sale and e-commerce, what are they? Many times my clients are confused about what each of these are, and so I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page as we make our way forward through the next hour. And so a point of sale. The point of sale is literally the hardware, software, and typically what we call payment processing, which includes payment processing solution, payment gateway, and the merchant account that helps in a physical retail purchase. Okay, so that transaction that happens when you're face-to-face with your customer and they're purchasing something, whether that be a product off your shelves or otherwise. Okay, so that's the point of sale system. They're swiping their credit card, they're handing you a check, they're handing you cash. That interface is point of sale. And it's really important because this is the thing that ends up interfacing with so much of your inventory management system and your accounting solutions and so on and so forth. Point of sale really makes that possible that other systems do not. Okay, flip side is e-commerce. E-commerce is the software and payment processing that I was talking about earlier, payment processing being the gateway, your merchant account services, and so on and so forth, that make up a digital purchase, okay? So many times people make digital purchases even in a real-life environment, or they make a digital purchase, that being you might be face-to-face with a customer. A good example is many times I am giving a seminar or a workshop presentation, and people literally will purchase my book in the Amazon store while I'm talking, right? And then they'll come up to me afterward and say, oh, I purchased your book while that's That's e-commerce, right? Amazon is an e-commerce platform. So that's the software and payment processing. Amazon handles it, and that's a digital purchase. They're purchasing the electronic version of the book, or maybe they might be purchasing the physical purchase of a physical book, but it's still a digital purchase because it all happened on a screen, okay? So point of sale and e-commerce, two different things, but they must work together today for small business retailers to succeed. And that takes me to my soapbox. You need e-commerce, small business. It's really important, and maybe some of you are here and therefore I'm kind of preaching to the choir. But for those of you who are not yet convinced that there is an opportunity for you to have e-commerce, and actually an imperative for you to have e-commerce today, let me go over some of the reasons why, okay? First and foremost, my dear colleague who is also a Google Small Business Advisor over at Small Business Trends, they have this wonderful chart that is very terrifying to me as a web and mobile strategist, right? 74% of small businesses basically say they have they do not think that it's important for them to have e-commerce on their websites. Okay, 42% say that the web is not even that important for them, and 28% don't even have a website. So they don't have a website at all, and they don't think it's important, and all those other things. This is staggering to me because of the largesse of the importance of how this, affects your bottom line. Local business is no longer just local traffic, physical traffic walking into the store. And as soon as you get over that erroneous notion is the moment that you can actually start to make a broader perspective, diversifying your ability to make sales and revenue a strong part of your business. And most often than not, if you're struggling in any way, shape, or form, it's because some part of your web and mobile marketing strategy is failing. And that usually comes to your infrastructure, and your infrastructure being your point of sale and your e-commerce, okay? So not only are small businesses, a vast majority of them, not e-commerce capable, even more of them are not mCommerce capable. And mCommerce capable just means that they can buy on a mobile device. Okay, so you can do that digital purchase on a mobile device. This is, again, shocking to me and disturbing on so many levels, because most of my mission is to help local small businesses succeed on the web and mobile marketplace. And the reality is that you can't do that. You can't run an effective local business today if you don't have some of these basic components in place. Businesses, consumers that is, come to you many times from an offline perspective. They go online and look at you and then come back and buy, and not having these core components in place really do set you behind. They may not purchase on your website, but they certainly look at it, okay? Most of the solutions I'll be talking about today do integrate both point of sale and are mobile enabled, and I'll make a point of the ones that are not, although there are reasons why you might choose a non-mobile tool, even though I would really like you to have a mobile, an mCommerce interface. Some of the point of sale solutions that I will be talking about will be not mobile enabled, but we'll talk about the reasons for that as we make our way along. So let's go further into some of the best practices for choosing e-commerce, and then we can have sort of an understanding of why I believe it's so important for you as retailers, as well as service professionals who are also selling digitally online, that is selling digitally. Make sure that your e-commerce solution is on solid ground. First and foremost, you need to connect your e-commerce and point of sale. I will keep saying this over and over again throughout today because it's so important. The reality is that if you don't have these fundamental pieces, your e-commerce and your point of sale connected, you have two islands unto themselves, and that data is lost on you, and business decisions can't be made. Good business decisions can't be made because you're not looking at the data in its full sense. You're not seeing a whole picture. You're seeing a very narrow sliver of two parts of the same pie, okay? So you really need e-commerce solution and a point of sale that connect to one another, okay? Most of the ones I'm talking about will be able to do that. And again, There are ways around that if you can't. So after the webinar, if you run into trouble, just shoot me an email and we could talk about some of the solutions that you can have. But connect your e-commerce and point-of-sale solutions. So many times I walk into a retail environment and their website is completely different than their point of sale. Okay, and that's okay as long as they have a solution in the background that is synchronizing that data in some way, shape, or form. But as I want to do, I ask the owners of these retail businesses and they say they don't. They look at this data very, very differently. They manage inventory separately, all of those kinds of things. And that's not only inefficient, it's unproductive, but it's also giving you an obtuse view, a skewed view of what your business is doing and how successful it is, and you're also losing opportunities because you're not capable of seeing where one product might be excelling in one area but not in the other, and how you might be able to creatively sell that product differently. Okay, if possible, you also want to connect your e-commerce solution and your point-of-sale solutions to your accounting software, whether you're using QuickBooks or Xero Accounting or Wave or otherwise. You really want to look for solutions that integrate with your accounting software. It just makes sense, right? You're making sales. You want those to show up in the appropriate accounts, within the chart of accounts within your accounting software, so that the reporting data is all seamless and together. Second, you want them to connect with Google Analytics. And what I mean by that is that when someone visits your website, you should be able to see the sort of trail of breadcrumbs that a person followed from the moment they touched your website to the point in which they purchased. And since Google Analytics helps to track website traffic, mobile traffic, email, advertising, online advertising, and puts that all together into, and social advertising that is, and puts that all together into one cohesive view, you have a really strong, database in Google Analytics that once it's tied back to this other data, you get a much better view of clients of potential customers that visit your website, fall out, and why. And once you can close that sales gap, then you're able to then create greater sales, a better customer experience, and a better foundation for the business as a whole, because it's probably going to make you have less headaches. It's going to make your staff have a better time working for you. Everybody wins in this particular environment. Next up, your email marketing. Your e-commerce and point-of-sale solutions should definitely be capturing email from customers as appropriate and making it a seamless experience for customers, but you should then connect that to your email marketing software so that you're able to then communicate to those people effectively, whether that be for generating reviews to any number of other kinds of positive benefits to the business. Email marketing is really important. And finally, social media, right? Your e-commerce solution and all of these other tools should be connected in some way, shape, or form so that it informs your social media output as well as your engagement, okay? You should be able to notice trends like this particular product is selling really well. We should push out more, content that highlights this particular product, or we have a product that's not selling so well, and I think it's because most people just don't know that it exists, so let's put out some content that highlights its features and benefits out on social media. Get it out on Twitter or YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook page or Instagram or otherwise, because you know that that's where your audience is. Okay, so if you know where your audience is and you need that kind of interaction, use the data and the connectivity of these web-based platforms to be able to unearth those insights, okay? So connect your e-commerce and point of sale, and if possible, connect these four as well. Next up, think of your e-commerce solution as a wonderful marketing opportunity, even if you never sell a product on your website, okay? So hear me out. Each product basically stands as its own web page, and Google really likes lots of web pages on a particular website that are of high quality. And the reason for that is that they believe that the more pages on a website and the higher value of those, the quality, basically the search engine optimization of that particular page, then the greater value of the whole, and therefore we can drive more people, website visitors, to Google who are doing searches to your website, right? This is the natural logic of the Google search engine algorithm. And there are lots of very varied intricacies about all of this, but in essence, I don't want you to think about the technical components of this more than thinking about the strategic value of each individual product, which is its own page within your e-commerce solution. And make sure that if you're going to use an e-commerce solution, that each product does create its own page. Many times I see these sort of, half-hearted e-commerce solutions that, generates this product catalog and they're all just mashed onto one page. Each product should be its own page so that it renders its own page to Google in the sitemap, and therefore Google can find it, can list it, and so on and so forth very well. Okay. Next up is that there is this thing called reverse showrooming, and reverse showrooming is actually not all that new, but let me explain. Showrooming is the idea of a customer coming into your store with a mobile device, probably their cell phone or smartphone, and they go ahead and search your product while they're standing there in your store. And they potentially buy your product, or they find a lower price or what have you while they're standing there in your store. And if they potentially buy that product, if they do buy that product, then you're losing that business because they've gone ahead and spent time in your store. You spend all of that energy, in terms of marketing and otherwise, to get them to walk into your store and look at your product. And now that they've looked at your product, they've gone elsewhere and purchased it. Well, that's a thing. And it's certainly something that we all have to deal with as retailers. But the opposite is also true, and it has been true for very, very many years, which is that there are more people who feel comfortable purchasing in stores than there are people who are comfortable with purchasing online today. And that trend is probably skewing toward more people buying online, but in certain industries that's not the case. Anyway, the point is that most people today will do what's called reverse showrooming. They will research online and buy offline, hence ROBO, research online, buy offline. Meaning that if you don't have a good website that also has e-commerce built into it, what you're saying to your customers is that your products don't exist. Because those people are the ones who are searching Google, finding your product on your shelf digitally, doing the research about it, and then they disconnect from offline to offline, walk into your store, and then purchase. The problem with this is that for most of our history, with online marketing, we've not been able to track this data. Well, Google has been able to do this now, and the data is actually pretty clear. Most people research online and then walk into a store within 24 to 48 hours of that search and purchase in a physical store. Okay, and we want that store to be yours by being the site that your potential customer finds, becomes loyal to you because they've found that information on your website and you're the local business and they walk into your store. So you have to have e-commerce in order to drive real-world retail sales. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Okay. Next up, you need to become friends with the Google Merchant Center and Google My Business, okay? And I want to show you what these are just very, very briefly so you can understand what I'm talking about. But in essence, the Google Merchant Center is this page, and you're going to just Google Merchant Center because the URL to get to it is pretty difficult. But basically, if you go to Google and type in Google Merchant Center help, you will find this page, okay? And actually, Tracy, if you'll remind me, I can put together a list of I'm going to be showing a lot of links today, so I will put together a list of all of these links, and I'll put a link to it for people to be able to download as a PDF. So just, Tracy, you can follow up with me, and I can make sure that gets done. So the idea here is the Google Merchant Center, and what this allows you to do is to be able to feed your products into Google Shopping, meaning that when I type in a search into Google, the standard example I give are men's shoes, because I probably buy too many of them, but I go out there and I type in men's dress shoes, right? And I look for shoes on Google. Well, Google knows that if I type in men's dress shoes, well, Ray is probably looking for a new pair of dress shoes. And by doing so, it now puts me into a new area, a new class of search, and that search is the Google Shopping search. And so it then knows the inventory of local stores, it knows the pricing of those products, it knows its location and therefore its proximate location to and from me, and all kinds of other things, okay? Well, the way in which that happens is that you code your e-commerce tool for Google Shopping, and then you come to the Google Merchant Center, and you actually put your feed into the Google Merchant Center. Okay, so this is the page that walks you through that process. I don't have time to show you all the ins and outs of it today, but know that when you get to this Google Merchant Center help page, and it tells you what is Google Merchant Center, and then how to follow the guidelines and so on and so forth to set up your account, verify your website, and then submit your product data feed. This is where you want to go, and this is where you can troubleshoot all of that fun stuff with Google. Okay. Next up is the Merchant Center. I'm sorry, this is the Merchant Center main page. I really like the help page because it actually works very, very well. But if you do need to, the few times that you're going to be able to talk to a human at Google is here in the Merchant Center, as well as with Google AdWords and a couple of other minor products. But you can talk to a human, so they have free support Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can call them, and they'll walk you through the process. So once you get your e-commerce solution in place, and that you know that it's Google, Google Shopping or Google product data compliant, then you can call them, and they can walk you through the process of getting set up within the Google for Retail or the Google Merchant Center space. Okay, so go to that link and to the Google Help Center, and you'll be able to see that. Finally, if you go to the Help Center and just search for product data specification, this is the page that will actually walk you through what is necessary for being able to get your product data listed. And it includes all kinds of things, from inventory to the description of the product, a picture of an image of the product or images of the product, pricing data, and proximity to that particular customer in terms of location. So you really do need to make sure all of these, all the product data specifications are adhered to, so that you can get the maximum benefit out of streaming your data from your website out to Google, and therefore bringing people from Google to you, to your e-commerce pages, that is specific product pages, and then eventually, hopefully, they will either purchase online, or if they don't, then they will be robo-buyers. Well, they'll research online, recognize that they want to purchase that product, they will see that it is in stock at your store, and now will go ahead and make a trip to you to purchase within that 24 to 48 hour range. Okay, so really, really important for you to sort of keep that in mind. Okay, so with that out of the way, you should also obviously keep in mind there is such a thing as Google My Business, and Google My Business is accessed by going to google.com/business, and there, that of course allows you to verify your website against the Google authentication for purposes of identifying that you own the website and that you're a retailer and all these other kinds of things. Now, the importance of Google My Business is that location, that listing on Google Maps, is how Google indicates your inventory proximity to the customer. Okay, and what we're finding is that when it comes to local search, your proximity is actually one of the greatest indicators of whether or not Google sends you traffic or not. Okay, now I would love to say that was the number of reviews and the quality of the reviews and the quality of the websites and all those other things. Those are actually lower tier items to proximity. Okay, so the distance between you and your buyer are really important. So making sure that your Google My Business listings are accurate, if you have a single location, a single retail location, or multiple, it's really important that you have your Google My Business set up in addition to the Google Merchant Center product data feed, properly feeding Google that information. It's those two pieces that work together, like e-commerce and point of sale. It's those two pieces that work together so well to be able to drive local retail traffic. Okay? All right, next up, I wanted to talk a little bit about point of sale solutions, and I'm going to show you several options, but I just wanted to go over some of the things that you want to really pay attention to as it relates to point of sale, because I think it's one of those things where you might get sort of flustered by the idea that there are all these options of point of sale, but once you know the criteria for choosing point of sale, you can narrow it down pretty quickly, and there are just 9 points that I want to make here regarding that. All right, so first and foremost is you want to look at cost of acquisition, okay? And cost of acquisition includes, what is the fee for the software, the hardware, and so on and so forth in terms of the initial costs, right? So they may have a fee for setup, for implementation, and those kinds of things. Make sure that you know those fees out the gate, because those will be the initial, that'll be your cost of acquisition, right? That'll be the amount of money you have to pay up front. So it's really important that as a small business especially, you pay attention to what those costs are, and making sure that the vendors that you're talking to put all of the costs on the table up front in some kind of estimate or quotation, okay? Or at least they have them publicly on their website so that you can see exactly what it is that you're going to be paying, okay? Next is that you have these payment processing costs, okay? And payment processing costs come into play in terms of two different arenas. One is the software themselves, is the point of sale vendor themselves has their own payment processing. That is, they have their own, credit card charging process, with their payment gateway, as well as merchant account. Merchant account is the holding account that holds the money between the credit card transaction being processed and them delivering it to your business bank account. So if they handle all of that, they may have their own fees that sort of work there, and they may or may not interface with your bank. So, especially if you have merchant services, that is, payment processing and so on and so forth, with your bank, you need to make sure that your point of sale system works with that solution, right? And if that's something that's really important to you, then, that'll eliminate probably, many of the other POS systems. So just keep that into account. Payment processing costs. And then the other side to that is if you use an external system, say your payment processing tool connects with PayPal or Stripe or another kind of payment gateway. Well, then you need to make sure that your point of sale system can handle that if that's what you want to do. And of course, each of those has their layers of costs. Typically, you should not have to pay the point of sale solution plus, say, PayPal or Stripe for processing of the same transaction, right? You should pay for the software, sure, and maybe there's a monthly fee associated with that, or maybe an upfront cost for purchasing that plus the hardware and so on and so forth. But then you shouldn't have to pay per transaction for each of those things. So keep that in mind, that you're not getting charged duplicately for the same transaction. So payment processing costs are a big deal, and you should pay attention to those. Third are the other fees. So for example, you might have PCI compliance fees that you need to pay for the software vendor and the hardware vendor to keep your data security in place. You want to make sure that there isn't an ongoing equipment or rental fee that you're not aware of, okay? So there might be some equipment fees, especially if you have barcode scanning or inventory, upfront inventory that needs to be scanned and added into the database. Is that something you're going to do manually, or your staff, or is the vendor going to do that? And then of course chargebacks and other kinds of like fraud based chargebacks, or non-fraudulent chargebacks that happen, and figuring out how those actually get attached to your account, and how much those are, especially if bounce checks, those kinds of things that happen. You want to make sure that you know what those fees are up front, and what the average for that particular software vendor is in terms of things, and maybe average for your industry, so you're aware. Okay, next up is ease of use. And this really comes into play when it comes to ongoing training of your staff. Is the tool complicated enough that you need to have ongoing training of your staff? And almost every point of sale solution has a learning curve. There's some amount of learning that you and your staff is going to have to sort of get up to date, up and running for purposes of learning how to use it properly and effectively. I really look at this from the perspective that the more mobile, typically the easier it is to use. That's not always the case, but that's a good metric for me, is pairing ease of use and mobility of the tool, and those usually blend together really well for something that's going to be easy to, whether you're walking around with it or whether it's something that sits on a counter. The reality is that you want that to be you want it to look easy, you want it to be intuitive in essence, and you also want to think about mobility. Some places like restaurants that have a fixed location, you also want to know whether or not you can have a static POS terminal there, right? So some of these things, they may be mobile tablets, but if you don't have power in a particular location and you don't want to have to, get the permits and all the other stuff to run wires, that means you might have a mobile tablet that you put up and load your point of sale, and it's connecting via Wi-Fi or otherwise back to your main system, but now you need to make sure that that's, plugged in every night and those kinds of things. So the mobility of these tools does allow for static terminal location placement without you needing to worry about, all of those other infrastructure pieces, but it does create some complexity, right? Having to plug it in, making sure that, it's up and running and operable and that it's connected to your Wi-Fi. Those things do end up being additional complexity, but they can be done. So think about mobility. Finally, PCI compliance. Make sure that your point of sale solution is PCI compliant, period. I don't need to explain to you what it is other than saying to you that you need it, and that does include physical as well as digital components, okay? So make sure it's PCI compliant. Next up are EMV Chip Compliance, okay? So we are in the process of seeing Europay, MasterCard, Visa, EMV, chip card compliance making its way finally into the small business arena in most ways. But there are still a lot of major companies who are resisting doing this, and that gives people the sense, especially small business retailers, that they don't need to do it. Basically, right now in 2017, if you have a fraudulent transaction that runs from a magnetic strip swipe, you're liable for that fraud, not your bank, not FDIC, not your payment gateway, that is MasterCard or Visa or whomever else, Discover or otherwise. You pay for that fraud. So, it's really imperative for you to become chip card compliant. Now, the reality is that we're in 2017, so at 2020, you will be required to have it. That will become the final stage, unless for some reason the federal government goes ahead and delays, sort of the implementation of this, or EMV delays this. That is, if they delay this, then 2020 for right now is the deadline. There's no reason for you to wait. For the idea of reducing fraud across the board, it's really important for you to go ahead and be EMV chip compliant. Okay, so just don't use any vendors that aren't. I mean, it's just that simple. If they have the chip card ability, use it. Next up is NFC friendliness, okay? And that means there are actually many of them. There's Walmart Pay and Samsung Pay and others, but the two major ones are Apple Pay and Android Pay. And this is the idea that someone walks in with their phone and they can pay with their phone because there's an embedded wireless chip that's inside of their phone, okay? And I use this quite frequently with many different stores, and it's super handy, right? I forgot my wallet in the car. Oh, great, I have my phone. All I need to do is unlock the phone and tap the, hover the phone over the payment device, and voila. And most of the payment solutions today have it built in. I frequent many small business coffee shops. I'm a bit of a coffee fan, and so it's great to see the little square pads now. All I have to do is just wave my phone over the payment portal, and I didn't have to pull a wallet or a card out of my pocket. It just pays, and I can go on with it. And that seamless experience for the customer, you can't really put a price dollar on it until you are tracking the data, a la having your point of sale connected to your e-commerce and to your accounting software and to the other pieces, right? You just won't know until you start to see the data. And this is where tracking this kind of data in a point of sale solution as well as in your e-commerce solution is really, really powerful, because Android Pay now is compatible with PayPal and other tools for being able to use Android Pay on a mobile website. So I don't need to input credit card data on my phone now when I'm trying to make a payment for those websites that are smart enough to implement this Android Pay PayPal partnership, right? I go to the website, I want to pay for something. If the website handles PayPal, now boom, I can go ahead and just say, okay, I want to purchase this. I put my finger on my fingerprint sensor, or I type in my password to my account, and voila, or my PIN into my account, and it goes ahead and makes that payment for me. Okay, so it handles all of that securely in the background. So really, you need to make sure you are Apple and Android Pay compatible. Okay, next up is industry-specific features, and this comes into to play specifically when I'm talking to restaurateurs, right? I mean, they tend to want to have something that is bespoke to their industry, but there are many different e-commerce solutions and point-of-sale solutions that are focused on one particular industry. You know, there's one for jewelers. There are ones for restaurateurs like Toast, which I won't show you today, but they exist, right? So you want to think about, you know, Blue Ocean with Harmony. You want to make sure that if you have a very specific industry that you need, you know, those kinds of features, you know what they are. Make sure that you pick solutions that match them. And finally, does it connect to your e-commerce solution? I can't say that I didn't tell you that I was going to keep repeating this, but your point-of-sale solution needs to connect to your e-commerce solution, purely for the fact that, you know, you don't want to run multiple inventory systems. You don't want to be running data that's double entering data, and you want to be able to see if someone purchased online for something where they came in the store and they've been in the store before, right? Because hopefully you're tracking data. You can match up names of purchases. You could do all kinds of really great slicing and dicing of data that indicates what the purchase pathway is for the majority of your customers. And if you find that the majority of the people who are loyal customers maybe start by purchasing in your store the first time, but after that they buy online, that's great, because now you know what it is that you need to do in order to engage in-store retail customers for future sales, right? Getting them, maybe giving them a discount, you know, say, hey, your first purchase online, you get 10% off, and then you keep, you know, engaging with them via email or other kinds of mechanisms, because you know that you might not see them in the store, but they're willing to purchase more from you. You just haven't been engaging with them, and so therefore they're not buying on your website, right? Or maybe you want to engage more people to come back to your store because you see that, yes, they buy online, but they don't buy as much, right? So how do you engage those offline buyers who then become online buyers, but what you really want is to bring them back to the retail environment so that your sales staff can upsell them or cross-sell them on things. Make sense? Good. All right, so those are the things you want to sort of pay attention to when it comes to choosing a point of sale. Next up, let's go briefly through the e-commerce solutions, you know, choosing the right e-commerce solutions, and then let me show you around some of these tools. Okay, so here we go. Selecting and implementing e-commerce. One, what are you selling? Most often than not, that is the number one sort of, you know, decision maker when it comes to choosing e-commerce tools. So are you selling digital products only? Are you selling digital and physical products, meaning that fulfillment is going to be necessary in addition to just allowing people to download or to get a code for something or whatnot? Or are you selling only physical products, therefore you don't have to manage digital data, that is stuff that's on your website or in some other space that you then have to give to those people through a secure digital means? Are you doing inventory management in your e-commerce system, and the costs of being able to manage the product being delivered to your buyer, right? I really can't stress how important inventory management is to both e-commerce and your point-of-sale system. They should interface hopefully with your accounting software and feed both of those, you know, synchronously, so that you know in real time what your inventory looks like. And if you have one, you know, sort of unique products, maybe you have a store of all unique products, I still recommend that you do it. And you can do this in a number of different ways, and I know it's extra work, but for you not to know what your inventory is kind of counterproductive for the success of your business. And I know that I have customers who have come to me and said, well, every single product is unique. Well, every product is unique, but it's in a class of products, right? You know, so you need to be able to chunk the products together into a category of something, and then be able to list them on your website. And maybe that means you create your own, you know, SKU system, so that you're creating SKUs for your products and barcoding everything. You know, again, I understand that it seems daunting, but it's doable. I see businesses who do it every day. The ones who have done it, I see them being successful and them not having as much stress about how to manage and move around inventory, especially when there are multiple locations. So I really, really believe in inventory management, okay? And then, of course, there are going to be costs associated with packaging and delivering those products. Are you passing those costs along to e-commerce buyers and not your physical location, physical retail buyers? You need to make that decision, and that gives you some opportunities. Fulfillment can include you packaging and delivering it, locally, or you sending that to a facility that then goes ahead and packages it and delivers it on your behalf. Then finally, there's drop shipping. There may be products that you're having manufactured elsewhere, and can they do that for you? Especially if you're just reselling a product, you have the product maybe on your shelves, but maybe you also know that you're sourcing this product from somewhere else. So when someone purchases online or on their mobile device, they're going ahead and having that directly shipped to them, meaning that you don't have to pay for the cost of it having to be delivered to you, then packaging it and repackaging it and then shipping it to the direct customer. Just sort of something that you have to figure out, okay? Finally, there is selling across marketplaces. So if you're just a new business, or if you're a business looking to get online and you really don't know how or what you want to do, you might want to think about selling across a marketplace. And I want to just sort of explain that very briefly so you have an idea of what I'm talking about. So here is what I mean by a marketplace. I wanted to show you really quickly. So if you're thinking about doing drop shipping, Doba is a really great tool for that. Doba is sort of I think the leader in this, but they can source products across global, manufacturers and suppliers, and you go ahead and connect this to your e-commerce solution, and then you're able to sell those products on your website. So, whether it's you're selling, llama, hats from artisans in South America, to selling, steel prefab frameworks for buildings, you can basically go into Doba, look for the products that fit your industry, and then splice them into your e-commerce solution, okay? So there are a lot of people who run their entire business just using something like Doba that allows you to be able to do that, okay? Something to just consider, that maybe you don't want to sell your products, your retail products online, but maybe you want to sell products that are sort of maybe lower value to you, but easily still sold for those people who are visiting your website. Next up, if you're managing any level of fulfillment and drop shipping, and whatever, look to ShipStation. ShipStation is a way to manage your online sales across many different places, whether you're selling on Amazon or eBay or on your website or otherwise. This helps to track and manage those pieces across the board. So ShipStation is awesome. Okay, next up, if you're just getting into online sales, there is the grandfather of selling online, which is Amazon, right? And Amazon has its benefits and its disadvantages. There's no question about it, but it's certainly a huge marketplace that you can put your product on and sell very easily. So consider it. Next up is Walmart. A lot of people don't realize this, but Walmart has launched something called the Walmart Marketplace, and so now you're able to go ahead and apply. So you'll be able to apply here on this page. And like I said, I'll provide a document with links to all of this stuff, and so you'll be able to go ahead and sell products in and on Walmart.com. This is just huge in terms of Walmart's sort of infrastructure and space. So if you have a product that you think would be widely interesting to consumers, then you want to go out there and do that. Okay, and then just think about the demographics of people who purchase at Walmart and on Walmart.com versus those that purchase on Amazon or Amazon.com or Amazon properties, and as well as Amazon.com, and that will help you sort of make a decision as to whether or not you go with a platform like Amazon.com or a place like Walmart where there's physical footprints. And the really cool part about both Amazon and Walmart is that they have physical spaces where you can have products picked up. So most people don't know this, but there's something called Amazon Locker. And Amazon Locker is, a lot of 7-Elevens and other locations have these lockers that literally are holding products. And so you purchase your product and it's delivered to the locker. So even if you can't have something delivered to maybe your office or your home, you can still have it delivered to the Amazon locker, and you can just pick it up to and from your way to work. Okay. So with Walmart, obviously Walmart has a store in everywhere, it seems, and so Walmart's cool part is that you can basically buy it online from this local retailer who might be across the country and pick it up in a Walmart store, because they already have all the distribution and logistics to be able to move that product very easily from one point to another, and therefore you're capable of being able to get the benefit of that. Okay. Next up is, if you are an artisan, if you're somebody who is making your product, then you might want to think about Etsy. Etsy is I don't know why that won't go away, but okay. But Etsy is this really fantastic platform for being able to set up a shop and sell things that you are making. Now, the reality is that it doesn't have to be everything. You don't have to make it physically in your home in order for Etsy to allow you to sell it. So you might have something that you have developed or invented, and someone else manufactures it, but it's not something that's being manufactured at a particular scale that limits you from being able to sell it on Etsy. So look at Etsy's requirements for being able to shop, to be able to sell on Etsy, and see whether or not Etsy is a platform that can sell for you. Again, these are all marketplaces in the sense that these are people who might be buying from you who would never otherwise know that you exist. Okay, and that's the real power of being able to sell on a marketplace. Okay, eBay is another choice. You know who eBay is. They're a huge marketplace for people who are selling goods that they have owned, that have been lovingly used, and they want to resell it. But there's actually a huge opportunity to be able to sell new goods that have never been used before. So you have an opportunity to use that with eBay as well. Those who are selling digital products online, there's a tool called Gumroad. And Gumroad is a little bit of both. They're an e-commerce solution where you can sell digital goods. You can sell physical goods as well. It's not really built for it, but you can do it. You can see here that they list physical goods as something that you can sell online. You can sell subscriptions and pre-orders to things. But the idea here is that with Gumroad, you're able to set it up. It's just super easy. It works across desktop and mobile, and it's just a very simple system. And they also have the ability to market your tool across their network. It's more expensive to be in their marketplace, but again, if you need the exposure to be able to sell outside of your world, then it's good for you to be able to do that. Okay. Another tool is called Sells, and Sells is a very simple e-commerce platform that's fairly robust in its features. So it has a lot of really cool tools if you want to set up a Facebook store, or if you want to do, all kinds of, integrations with other applications. Sells is a really cool tool for doing that. So you can look at Sells and see what features it has and whether or not it's useful to you. Okay, so I'm going to hop back to my presentation deck just for another moment, and then we will continue on. All right, so I just wanted to show you some of those marketplaces because I think they're important for us all to sort of take into account as we make our way through. All right, the last couple of things that you need to pay attention to when we talk about implementing e-commerce. All right, number 4, taking payments and making refunds. Okay, so your e-commerce solution should be able to have a merchant account, and that's the account that sits in the middle. As I said before, it takes payments, holds it there before it moves on to your bank account. It's just easier to make and take payments and then of course make refunds from a merchant account than it is to pull it from your bank account and and get it back to a customer. So especially when it comes to credit card payments. So make sure that your e-commerce solution has some form of merchant account service, merchant account that is, so that you're able to make refunds back. Okay, number 5, tax management and all of that other stuff is really, really important. Many jurisdictions are cracking down on retailers who are not following the tax rules. Okay, so the idea is that if you're in a jurisdiction that does tax goods, you need to make sure that you are collecting that tax and making payment on it. Your e-commerce solution should manage that. And then, of course, I know I'm beating a dead horse now, but number 6, it should integrate with your point of sale, okay? So your e-commerce solution should integrate with your point of sale, and most of the ones that I'll be showing you today will, of course, do that. All right, so a couple of additional considerations, and then I want to talk a little bit more about the tools. Okay, if you're thinking about e-commerce, you might also think about launching a mobile app in either the Google and or the Apple and or Google Play stores. The reason for this is that as soon as you have a mobile optimized e-commerce solution, you can easily wrap these tools into an app, and therefore it puts you into a space where people can now have you on their phone, where they can go ahead and purchase from you. There are several tools that allow you to do this. One is called Business, another is called Appy Pie, because it's easy as apple pie to launch an app. And there's another tool called Buildfire. There are many other tools out there that can do that. A couple of points that I want to make about launching a mobile app is that it's not difficult. These tools allow you to be able to do it really seamlessly. 2 is that now you are in the customer's pocket. So if you get them to install the mobile application where they have your product catalog in your pocket, you're now able to push notifications to them, send them special deals, communicate to them about store openings or closings or holiday hours or sales and things of that nature that could be very, very powerful for driving in-store traffic. And so that's the point here, is that we can use digital to push retail traffic in person. And that's really, really powerful. And a mobile app is actually something that can really do that. And so once you have that e-commerce tool created and it's mobile optimized, well, now you have a new option, which is to be able to get right in front of them via the mobile app, okay? Next is look to local retail apps that can add you to theirs. So many jurisdictions, not many, but some jurisdictions are starting to create their own mobile applications, and they're listing their local retailers in those apps, usually for a fee, but then they do all the work for you, right? So they're sending out advertising and sales materials to people within the applications as notifications or email or otherwise to engage them in your locality, right? So if you're in Alexandria, Virginia, you're going to get notifications and messages about all the things that are travel and tourism and being a well-connected local in that area, okay? Be careful. The caveat here is to be careful about apps like BuyBuy, okay? The reason for that is that BuyBuy and those other apps, what they do is they make you a commodity in the system, and I don't like it, so be very wary of it, okay? So just go look at BuyBuy and see what they do and see how it actually makes you, it makes your skin crawl, the way in which they make small business retailers. They sort of cannibalize you and just try to drive lots and lots of annoying traffic to these people, and they do these flash sales and other kinds of things. I just really don't like it. It doesn't produce quality in terms of loyal buyers. It creates discount consumers who are just looking for a good deal, and they never come back again. And you really want, especially as a local retailer, you want to make sure that you are strengthening the relationship with your customers, and you're creating the relationship, a one-to-one connection, typically with a phone number or email address, and apps like BuyBuy just don't give you that opportunity. Okay, next up, consider dynamic pricing. Dynamic pricing is basically the concept of changing prices based on what's selling on the internet currently, right? And lots of websites do this. Amazon does this, and many other sites do this. And so, basically every 30, maybe 15, 30, 45 minutes or on the hour, you have a built-in algorithm in your website, in your e-commerce solution, that is changing prices to increase people's purchasing desires, right? In letting people know, oh, you know what, in 30 minutes this price is going to go up, and that drives a sense of urgency, or just because you know that other prices online, because these tools are capable of analyzing that large aggregate data, and they see that the price of a product that you have online has somehow dropped in price, it can drop that down to the price that matches that, so that when someone shows up at your website, they don't literally buy from someone else just because the price is lower, okay? You can also do abandoned shopping cart emails. This is really powerful. Somebody goes through most of the process of checking out on your e-commerce site, but then they leave, okay? make sure that you have some component for being able to follow up with those people. I really like the idea of soliciting reviews. Yotpo is a tool. I'm going to go out to it very shortly, so I'm not going to jump out to it now, but make sure that you're soliciting reviews from your e-commerce solution, and tools like Yotpo can do that. Also consider live chat. There's so many sales that are lost because when the consumer comes to your website, they're not engaged with answering their specific questions. So from a sales perspective as well as from a customer service perspective, you can do a lot with live chat. Okay, mobile loyalty apps. Many of the tools are now starting to embed these directly into the points of sale as well as e-commerce, so that you're able to have rewards and other kinds of loyalty for people to come to your store. Right? You show up in person, you show up face to face, and therefore you get a better deal. Okay. Also, you might want to think about offering local checkout and delivery. So maybe you have a product that doesn't ship well, like a cake or something like that, where you feel uncomfortable with the idea of shipping it. Also, once you have somebody in your store, you have a face-to-face interaction. It's going to be a better customer experience, and you can show them how the product works, all kinds of other fun stuff. But that kind of upping the ante on customer service, and service after the sale, this local checkout and local delivery can be really powerful for a number of different reasons, right? Face-to-face with the customer is really important. All right, so let me quickly go through some of these tools. And like I said, I'm just going to run through them because I'm going to give you a list of them, and there's really no reason why we can't discuss that if you have a real question at another time. All right, so first and foremost, in terms of point of sale, we have Square Point of Sale, which is the hardware and software solution that's developed and offered by SquareUp. So if you go to SquareUp, you can, of course, see that. Next up is a tool called Vend, and Vend is a point-of-sale solution that allows for multi-store. You can see that they're both mobile and stationary terminal optimized. My only sort of issue with them is that they're iPad, Mac, or PC only. Okay, so while you can, obviously use a web version on an Android device, I find that the price of Apple iPads has been going steadily up. For business owners, your job is to make money, not to buy iPads from Apple. So, my one little, I really love Vend. I just really wish that they would put on their roadmap. But I just verified today that Apple, that Android OS is not on their roadmap in the near future. But notwithstanding, if you are already using iPads, if you're comfortable with the Apple ecosystem and your business can support that cost, Vend is awesome. Next up is QuickBooks. So if you're using QuickBooks for your online accounting software, QuickBooks has a pretty stable point-of-sale desktop system that is software that you can put on basically any Windows or Mac computer, but the idea here is that you can also use their infrastructure. It is not mobile at all, right? It's a desktop solution. As you can see in the photograph, it is really only for desktop. But if you just have, one location, one retail terminal, and a countertop, you don't need to move that around. It can work out pretty well. Okay. Next up is Shopify. If you have a Shopify website, then Shopify POS allows you to be able to connect the two of those really seamlessly. So that's a really nice sort of matchup, okay? So Shopify, if you have a Shopify e-commerce store, then Shopify POS can work really well for you as well, okay? Shopkeep is an iPad-focused, again, this is, iPad-focused point-of-sale solution. So if you need to be mobile, maybe you sell at a farmer's market, or if you have one retail store but you move around the countertops, maybe you host events, many coffee shops or cafes, they host events and they need their point of sale solution to move around and be on a countertop. This can actually work really well for you. So Shopkeep. And let me hop over here and just show you some of the other solutions that I wanted to show you. Let's see. That's AppyPie, those are those. Okay, so really quickly, if you're interested in reviews, this is Yotpo at yotpo.com, and Yotpo is the tool, at least the free version, is probably quite competent for most small business retailers to do what you need to do in terms of getting reviews about your products and your website, okay? So it works in a very, very smart way to be able to get real-time feedback. Basically, if you rate something good, then it puts you onto your preferred platform for leaving a review, like Google Reviews or Yelp. If it's a negative review, then it produces an email message to you as the owner to be able to address the issue offline and then send the user on to make the review afterward. Make sense? Cool. All right. If you have a WordPress website and you want to implement e-commerce, WooCommerce is for you. So WooCommerce is a plugin and a platform that has all kinds of features. Can't get into them right now, but WooCommerce if you're on WordPress. Shopify, if you don't have a website at all and you're thinking about launching a website and online store, Shopify can be for you. Pretty simple to set up, very easy tool. And like I said, if you're already on Shopify, then Shopify has its own POS, and that's that kind of thing. Many of these now that I'm going to be showing you are all basically you're going to look at the marginal features and make a decision as well as price, right? Because they all pretty much do the same things. BigCommerce is another option. We then have Squarespace. So if you have a Squarespace website, Squarespace has Squarespace stores. You can go ahead and create a Squarespace store. Okay, so pretty easy. And then if you use SquareUp, then you're like, you're all square. Then we have Volusion. Volusion is a fairly they're no longer a startup. They're a stable company, and they've been around a long time, and they have both email marketing and all kinds of other products. You can see that under their products things. You can sell things, you can grow with email and all kinds of other things. But they do offer a very, very competent e-commerce solution. And again, their products tie together, and that gives you that integrated data view. Magento is an open source solution that you can install on your own website or on a hosted platform, and Magento is used by many businesses that need much more complex e-commerce solutions. So if you need to sort of build your own solution because something doesn't exist out there that you want to really look at Magento and the people who actually provide customized development for them. Okay, there's a couple of others, but I've run out of time, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass this back over to Tracy. I'm happy to answer questions. We can close out. And like I said, I'm going to send you the list of tools, so you don't really have to worry too much about those. If you have questions about them, just shoot me an email. I'll be happy to answer questions regarding your situation.
Okay. Right, we have a couple of questions right now, and then I'll close out. What about Drupal Commerce?
Yeah, so Drupal Commerce is actually one of the ones that was actually the next tab that I was going to show you. So Drupal Commerce is actually really great, and the guys who, I'm presuming there are women also on staff, but they're the Drupal guys. The Drupal guys company, they do really also bespoke e-commerce solutions. So if you need something that is really customized to your needs, Magento or Drupal Commerce are going to be for you.
How about, is there a comparison of point of sale solution providers and a comparison of the costs?
There are several online. I would again go to smallbusinesstrends.com, and they actually have several comparison type articles that show you that, and that's where I would send you, is to smallbusinesstrends.com.
Okay. So we don't have any questions. I'm going to go ahead and close out the webinar. Thank you all for participating today. Today's webinar was recorded and it'll be posted on the Virginia SBDC website under live webinars and recordings. Tomorrow you'll be receiving a follow-up email on the webinar, and there'll be an evaluation link in the email. Please help us to continue to improve our training by taking the time to complete the evaluation. If you'd like to complete it now, I did post that link in the chat window, so you can go ahead and click on it. Our next webinar is July 13th, Getting Started with Instagram Small Business Marketing. Thanks everyone for participating today, and thanks Ray for some great information.